Most people want a good life. They just can't agree on what that means. Aristotle spent his entire career answering that question, and his answer is still the most practical one anyone has ever given. He was born in 384 BCE in Stagira, a small town in northern Greece. His father was a physician, personal doctor to the king of Macedon. That medical background matters. Aristotle always thought in terms of function and purpose. At 17, he was sent to Athens to study at Plato's academy. He stayed for 20 years. By most accounts, he was the most gifted student there. Plato reportedly called him the mind of the school. When Plato died, Aristotle was not chosen to lead the academy. He left. Whether from rejection or ambition, nobody is sure. What followed was a period of travel, observation, and thinking that changed the shape of Western knowledge. In 343 BCE, he was hired by Philip II of Macedon to tutor his son. That son was Alexander, later called the Great. For 3 years, Aristotle taught the boy who would conquer the known world. He returned to Athens in 335 BCE and founded his own school, the Lyceum. He taught while walking. His followers became known as the Peripatetics, from the Greek word for walking. Even his teaching method was embodied. He wrote on everything: biology, physics, logic, ethics, politics, drama, rhetoric, psychology. Around 200 works are attributed to him. 31 survive. What we have is likely lecture notes, not finished texts. Unlike Plato, Aristotle trusted the physical world. He dissected animals. He catalogued species. He watched. His philosophy didn't descend from abstract ideals. It rose from observation. That difference shapes everything that follows. His most important question was deceptively simple. What is a thing for? Every object, creature, and person has a function. When it fulfills that function well, it flourishes. When it doesn't, something has gone wrong. A knife that can't cut has failed its purpose. An eye that can't see has failed its purpose. A human being who can't live well, fully, thoughtfully, engaged with others, has also failed a purpose. That's not harsh. It's just honest. This leads to his central concept, eudaimonia, usually translated as happiness, but that's too thin. Flourishing is closer, a full, active, excellent life. Not a feeling, a condition, something you build, not something that happens to you. Eudaimonia is not about pleasure. Pleasure is fine, Aristotle thought, but it's a byproduct, not a goal. Chasing pleasure directly is like chasing sleep. The harder you try, the more it escapes. To live well, you need to exercise your specifically human capacity, reason. Not just think, but think well, consistently, over a lifetime. Eudaimonia is the result of reason applied to living. It takes practice. It takes time. Now here's where it gets personal. Aristotle believed virtue is a habit. You don't become courageous by reading about courage. You become courageous by doing courageous things, repeatedly, until it becomes who you are. This is called habituation. Character is formed through repeated action, not intention. A person who intends to be generous but never acts generously is not generous. Aristotle has no patience for the gap between knowing and doing. The virtues themselves are defined by the doctrine of the mean. Every virtue sits between two vices, one of excess, one of deficiency. Courage is between cowardice and recklessness. Generosity between miserliness and wastefulness. The mean isn't arithmetic middle ground, it's the right amount in the right situation for the right person. Anger is sometimes appropriate. Aristotle's virtue is context-sensitive. That's what makes it harder, and more honest, than rule-following. Apply this to your own life. Think of something you struggle with. Patience, confidence, self-discipline. Aristotle would say, "You're not failing a test. You're in the middle of a long practice. Every day is a training session." Aristotle also wrote on friendship, more carefully than almost any philosopher before or since. He distinguished three kinds: friendships of utility, of pleasure, and of virtue. Most of what we call friendship is the first two. Friendships of utility, you need something from each other. Friendships of pleasure, you enjoy each other's company. Both are real, both are fine. But they end when the utility or pleasure ends. Only virtue friendships endure. A virtue friendship requires knowing the other person fully, not just what they do for you, but who they are. Aristotle called a genuine friend another self. That phrase alone is worth sitting with for a long time. He was equally direct about politics. Humans are political animals, not political in the party sense, social by nature. A person who lives entirely outside community is either a beast or a god, not human. This is a direct challenge to the modern fantasy of radical self-sufficiency, the idea that needing others is weakness. Aristotle thought the opposite. Needing others is human. The person who truly needs nobody has already lost something essential. His logic is the other towering achievement. He invented formal logic, the syllogism, from nothing. For 2,000 years it was simply called the logic. Nobody had done it before, and nobody improved it significantly until the 19th century. A syllogism. All humans are mortal. Socrates is human. Therefore Socrates is mortal. Simple structure, radical implication, conclusions forced by premises alone, with no room for feeling or tradition to interfere. That's still how formal argument works today. Why does this matter personally? Because most of our arguments, with others, with ourselves, are not logical. They feel logical. Aristotle gave us the tools to tell the difference. That skill is rarer and more useful than most people realize. He also wrote the Poetics, the first systematic analysis of drama. Why does tragedy work? Why do we seek out stories about suffering? His answer: catharsis. Watching tragedy purges the emotions we're afraid to feel in real life. This matters for how you consume art, film, and fiction now. Aristotle would say, you're not escaping when you watch a devastating film. You're doing something necessary. Feeling at a safe distance is how emotional intelligence gets built. In his biology, Aristotle catalogued over 500 animal species, through direct observation, not inherited wisdom. He was wrong about many things. But the method, look carefully, record honestly, update when wrong, was genuinely new. His errors were substantial too. He thought the brain was a cooling organ for the blood. He believed women were incomplete men. He accepted slavery as natural. His errors remind us, even the most careful thinker is still a product of their time. When Alexander died in 323 BCE, anti-Macedonian sentiment in Athens turned dangerous. Aristotle was accused of impiety, the same charge that killed Socrates. He chose differently. He fled, saying he would not give Athens a second chance to sin against philosophy. He died in 322 BCE in Chalcis of a digestive illness. He was 62. In his will, he freed his slaves, arranged for his children, and asked to be buried beside his wife. The man who shaped Western thought was also paying close attention to his actual life. His work was lost to Western Europe for centuries. It survived in Arabic translation, preserved by Islamic scholars, particularly Averroes, before being reintroduced to Europe in the 12th century. Half the Middle Ages was an argument with Aristotle. Thomas Aquinas spent his life integrating Aristotle with Christian theology. Dante put Aristotle in his inferno, not in hell, but in a lit clearing reserved for the greatest pagan minds. He called him simply the master of those who know. Now, what does Aristotle actually offer you? The first thing is a framework for evaluating your own life, not by comparing yourself to others, but by asking whether you are functioning well, as the specific person with the specific capacities that you are. The second is his theory of habit. If you don't like who you are, not as a fixed identity, but as a behavioral pattern, Aristotle offers a clear mechanism for change. Act differently, repeatedly, over time. The character follows the behavior. The third is his insistence on community. If you're struggling, isolated, and telling yourself you're fine, Aristotle would push back. Not with sentiment, with biology. You are built for others. Withdrawing entirely isn't strength, it's malfunction. The fourth is the mean. When something feels off in your life, too much or too little of something, Aristotle's framework asks a precise question. In which direction are you failing? That question alone can be diagnostic. His final gift is the idea that flourishing is a lifelong project, not a destination. There is no moment at which you arrive. The good life is an activity, not a state. That's either daunting or liberating, depending on where you're standing. Aristotle's question isn't, what do you want? It's what are you for, and are you doing it? That question has no comfortable answer, but it's one of the few that, if you take it seriously, actually changes how you live.
Thank you for watching. If this video brought you any value, please consider subscribing and leaving a like. For more content like this, hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. See you next time.